Hey, good morning, family. Reginald Martin here, and Kmetic Centered Living, and I'm out doing my walk again this morning. So this is something that I do pretty regularly. So it's I call it my meditative walk because a meditation is kind of really when you can the steps are just a repeated rhythmic pattern that I don't have to think about, so I can kind of just let my brain loose and not worry about where I'm stepping, unless I'm in some uneven plane or anything like that. But it's just a rhythmic thing. So meditation is when your brain can really just detach, or your thinking can detach from everything, and you can just zone in on your inner state. Okay. But at any rate, I went off on a tangent right quick, and I do that when I talk. So forgive me if I seem like I'm jumping around all over the place. But I wanted to talk today about the idea of separating spirituality from everyday life. And I had someone in the comments basically talk about how they do that, and what they don't realize is that that's really a religious way of looking at experience. And what I mean by that is, and I talk about Christianity because, one, that's my experience, and two, so I can help you contrast the difference, because a lot of times the human brain just needs contrast to understand ideas. Okay. So just as a teacher, that's kind of I've had to, of course, just study how people learn. But anyway, so Christianity has taught us that being spiritual and being in the physical are somehow diametrically opposed to each other. Okay. In other words, in order to be spiritual, we have to transcend our physical flaws. Okay. And based on the idea, of course, we're born in sin when we incarnate on earth. All right. So all kinds of, that's a core belief that all other kind of beliefs end up streaming down from it, so to speak. It's like that's like a big belief that contains a whole lot of other beliefs. But I just want to address right now the idea of being physical and spiritual. So from a Kmetic paradigm, there is no separation, okay, between the physical world and the metaphysical world, because everything that is physical from a Kmetic philosophy perspective comes from the metaphysical world. Okay, so the metaphysical world from the ancient perspective is primary, and the physical world is like a reflection, or another way to say that the physical world is analogous to the metaphysical world. And what I mean by that is that what you see in the physical is actually a reflection of your innermost being, okay, your innermost vibrational essence as a being. And the physical world that our ego is actually turned into and looking at, the ego is designed to recognize that reflection and then to make adjustments based on the things that you might not like, okay, things that you might fear or stuff like that. So that's what the ego is designed for. And a lot of times we even get negative, a lot of spiritual systems teach something negative against the ego, but you just have to understand what it is and what it's for. The problem a lot of times with the ego is that it wants to remain primary. Okay, it fears its own annihilation. So that ends up causing a lot of issues. But the idea is that everything that is spiritual or everything that is physical is just an extension of your spiritual being. Okay? So from the Kmetic perspective, it's all one unified existence. And the only difference is the vibration or frequency of that particular experience. Now, what that does is that it ends up putting you in a state or understanding that when we talk about vibration and frequency, you're able to discern the different vibrations and frequencies. Okay, but if you're put in the idea that somehow physical life is different from spiritual life, then you automatically set up a block. You automatically set up a contradiction that ends up being a battle or a conflict within you. Okay. Now, just to give just a really simple example of the unity of our existence, okay? And this is something most of us probably just like gloss over, we don't even think about. But it shows you how spirituality and your physical life are not two different things. And let's take the idea of the higher self, okay, and communicating with the higher self. In a lot of spiritual systems, it's taught that, you have to get in a meditative state, that you have to go through some ritual like prayer, or you have to do something in order to connect to your higher self, or as Christianity, everything was God or Jesus, But your higher self is always ever present with you, okay? The soul doesn't stop, and I call the higher self and the soul in this sense interchangeably. The soul doesn't stop communicating or existing because you're physical. You're actually, your physical body is actually within the soul, okay? You're not, the soul is not in you, you're in the soul because it's the metaphysical world, okay? It created you. It projected you into this plane or into this realm, okay? So let's say, have you ever had an instance where, and I do this all the time, so this is how I know, one of the ways I know about it, but you might misplace your keys, okay? And man, you go around the house and looking around for your keys, and you're getting frustrated because you can't find them, and then all of a sudden you get this flash of, say, a pair of pants or a sweater or something that you had on the day before, and then you go to those pair of pants or the sweater, and there are your keys, in a pocket. That mundane experience was your higher self helping you and communicating with you, okay? It doesn't have to be some catastrophic thing going on. You don't have to stop everything in order to get communication from your broader self, your higher self, okay? It is natural. It's so natural that a lot of times we just dismiss it because it is so natural. It's so commonplace. That little idea that I just expressed is so commonplace, we don't even think of it as spiritual, okay? But it's not spiritual, it's just experience. So experience can come in all types of different forms, all types of different instances, and your higher self is ever present. You're, as a soul, there's always this communication that's always going on. So it's not, when you separate being spiritual and physical, it ends up setting up a conflict in you some kind of way. So family, tell me if in your experience of Christianity, you have ever had the situation where you wonder if this is God talking to you or the devil. Is God telling you to do the right thing, or is the devil telling you to do the wrong thing? You literally have to decide if it's God or the devil. That's an inner conflict that should not be there. Because it's all the higher self. It's all you. You simply have to make the decision about if you want to take that path or not. And all paths are valid, okay? There's no, and this is again where Christianity sets up this way where if you go and you do something, I don't know, man, I'll just pick a one night stand, okay? Because that's something that's, you know, all of us are, you know, when it comes to sexuality, man, that's another big one. But let's say that you decide to have a one night stand. Now, of course, and you're not married, you know? And of course, Christianity is going to say, you know, no, that's, you know, that's wrong, that's immoral, that's, you know, blah, 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 okay? But from a Kmetic perspective, it's just experience. And whatever comes out of that one night stand, whether it's something good or bad, has the potential to teach you something, okay? But what if that one night stand is supposed to turn you in a direction to where you become a teacher or something happened. It's something happened catastrophic that makes you start to reflect on your life and everything else, okay? And I'm just picking, again, this is a worst case scenario. But it ends up making you turn towards doing something different in your life, okay? In that case, the one night stand, even though you might have had a bad experience because of it, it ended up turning you into the direction that really makes your soul sing, in a sense, you know, because you started doing something you love as opposed to living in a way that was out of character or inauthentic for you, okay? So I just use that scenario, so please don't get stuck on that, because I know people will come in and, yeah, well, sex is this, you know, it's sacred. Oh, I heard all that shit. Okay, I know that. So I'm just talking about looking at this at a higher level, okay? So in that instance, you're gonna get communication. The physical act itself, there's no distinguishing between it being spiritual or not because of the act, okay? Because it's all spiritual. You're a spiritual being having a human experience, okay? Same thing with the keys. It's something mundane, but your soul is always communicating with you, family. Always. One other thing that I wanted to talk about, so I hope that makes sense. So let me know in the comments, you know, need some clarification on that. But the idea that, I had this idea and then it just all of a sudden went bloop, it went away. That's why I have to prepare a lot of this stuff. My brain goes all over the place. But anyway, what was I gonna say? The idea of science as opposed to spirituality, because sometimes you might hear me say, or have heard me say, Kmetic science, okay? And some people like, science, what does he mean by science? What I mean by science is that based on the idea of the scientific method, okay, if you're familiar with science and you're familiar with the scientific method where, you know, you can observe, make hypotheses, experiment, test, and then, you know, something doesn't work, then you can rehypothesize, retest, you know, blah, 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 okay? That's what the scientific method is, okay? Spiritual science is the same thing, okay? In the sense that you can make a hypothesis about something, then observe you're the subject in this experiment, so to speak, called life, and you can recalibrate and do something different, okay? So, for example, when I'm talking about a science in the context of using the law of vibration from a scientific perspective, okay, using it as a science. One of the things that, again, and this goes back, all this stuff ties together, so when we're talking about frequency, okay, and vibration. But when you are trying to figure out if you're like going along the right path for you. One of the ways to determine that is simply by doing the things each moment and each day that bring you the most joy in that moment, in that day, okay? Simple thing, simple thing. But I know life gets in the way, you know? But the bottom line point is that when you are in joy, you are closer to the source, okay? You're vibrationally closer to the source of all, okay? So the science of this is to start to tune into your feelings and emotions, okay? Emotions are just simply energy in motion. You can get swept away by emotions, okay? Feelings are more like your constant state, okay? You're feeling happy, feeling sad, stuff like that. It's just a constant state for you. Or those feelings can sometimes lead to emotions, the getting swept away part. But when you tap into those feelings and emotions, that is our physical translation of the vibration in the universe. And there's like an infinite number of variations, family. Infinite. So when we say sad or depressed, we might be talking about a way to feel along a different spectrum, but one is more severe than the other, okay? But vibrationally, it's talking about a spectrum. We linguistically name two feelings that we have along this spectrum, okay? So they're not separate from you. In this way, you're not separate from the universe. You are a vibrational being. So the science would say, hey, every now and then, check into how you're feeling, okay? And see if you're living your life in the way that you want. If you're not feeling good, on a daily basis, whether it's in a relationship, in a job, blah, 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 then the science says to you, if you're not feeling good about this relationship or this job, what's the next step? What do you do? Okay? How do you change this or do something different to where you can bring yourself back in alignment? Because when you're not in joy, you're living inauthentically and not in alignment, okay? That's the science of it, okay? So a lot of times, again, we're taught that spirituality is supposed to be hard, but it's not. It's really simple. And what I just explained to you was a process of how to use the law of vibration in order to tell if you are aligned and living authentically. And let me tell you this. People are going to say, well, no, you can do this, you can do that. Family, I've lived this stuff and I know what I'm talking about here, okay? But tell me if it works or not. If what I'm explaining to you, if you do it, if you practice it, tell me if it works or not, okay? If it doesn't work for you, then you need to find something else that does. Maybe I'm not explaining it the way that you can grasp it, okay? But I know once you start tuning in to and understanding that your joy is your authentic being, and you do everything from the space of living authentically, man, that's a whole nother way to live. And you start making a whole lot of other decisions about the people you hang around, the job you have, what you do on a daily basis, how you want to live your life. All of that starts to happen, and starts to happen in a way that the science can help you calibrate. Okay, family. So that's the two things. But again, both of those are connected to you as a unified being, okay? So when I say both of those, the idea of being spiritual or physical and using the law of vibration to help you understand your authentic path, okay? Both of those basically help you to, those understandings help you to calibrate and live authentically, all right? So there is no simply just separating yourself from physical life because morally you're supposed to do this or you're not, you know? It ends up being its own conflict, and it ends up being an inner conflict that gets you out of alignment, okay, if that makes sense. All right. So that's the a couple of things that I wanted to just express to you, that when we are taught to live opposed to physical life, you're always going to be conflicted at some level. And tell me if you've ever been Christian and you've tried to live that, tell me if that's not true or not, okay? Tell me if that's not how life has been, that you've been conflicted about whether or not you're supposed to do this or do that. I mean, how many times have we heard like some famous singers, okay? I just use sing. I think about Aretha Franklin, who grew up in the church. She had to be conflicted. I mean, one of the most gifted singers of all time. I mean, damn, the queen of soul. But she had to fight with her own internal compass as to whether or not she should sing secular music or gospel music. How many people, singers, have you heard had that same conflict? Okay? But what brought her the most joy was singing the secular music, okay? When she followed her joy, damn, she became Aretha Franklin. All of us know Aretha Franklin, you know? So that's just one example, but of how religion can set up these conflicts that don't need to be there. So ask yourself, are you living authentically? How do you know if you're living authentically? Here's the science. If you're living authentically, you're joyful. You're enjoying life. Hell, Christianity even makes you say, is it a sin if I'm enjoying this too much? Okay? But from the broader spiritual perspective, whether it's Kmetic or anything else, the more broader and congruent spiritual perspectives are going to be, are you living through your joy? Okay? Are you enjoying life? Because that's what you came here to do. If you're not, it's usually some kind of lesson that you have to learn. If things are not going the way that you want, then there's some changes that need to be made. That's the science, okay? So, but it is an internal compass. It becomes your internal compass and teaching you and guiding you in that sense. And your higher self is always ever present, okay? So I hope that makes sense, family. I'm gonna go ahead and continue on my walk, and I hope that you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye-bye.